Welcome to Tableau conference. Welcome to day 2. I don't know if you guys are jazzed, but I'm pretty jazzed, talking about data and website analytics, a project that's been very close to our hearts for the past few months. This is our session, Tableau on Tableau, Advanced Website Analytics. And we're going to talk to you about one of our side projects that helped us save over $50,000 annually in just the first year alone, and not even thinking about all the other benefits that are coming through developing this suite of dashboards. Oops, wrong direction. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Our collective problem, yes, we're making assumptions that you might have this problem too. If you don't have this problem, you probably have a similar problem, or you know somebody with this problem exactly. We're going to go through how we created our solution, and then it wouldn't be fair if we had you sit here for 20 minutes listening to all this stuff without actually showing vizzes. So yes, we'll be showing you some of our vizzes. And then we're going to go over adoption and impact, how our work in this space has rippled across our organization. We're also going to go over what we wish we knew, and then discuss future plans, and then we'll open it up for question and answer. So if you have any questions, I just encourage you to hold on to those until the end. My name is Hannah Jackson. I am a senior analyst in the marketing operations department at Tableau. Prior to joining Tableau, I worked at Yelp for about 4 years. No, you cannot buy favorable reviews, despite what the internet says. It's not possible. But I worked in process improvement type roles on the sales operations team for sales operations, and then also for the sales organization. And Yelp is actually where my Tableau love story started. When I left there, I was a sales compensation and reporting manager, so I got to use Tableau in my day-to-day there. And I love Tableau so much that I decided to make it LinkedIn official, and I joined the team over here. It's, no, not Facebook, LinkedIn for sure. And one of the things that I really enjoy about my job at Tableau is that I get to partner with subject matter experts in the business to help them realize their data into something that can be actionable. So I've been graced with the opportunity to work with Josh Squires. He is a search engine optimization expert. And Josh, what about you?
Thanks, Hannah. I'm Josh Squires. I've been doing search engine optimization, content optimization for about 10 years. In just about every space you can do it in: consulting, agency, startup, enterprise. And it was in an enterprise role that I found Tableau, working at Capital One at their headquarters, working on a big interior search project. And we needed approval from someone who was 6 steps up the ladder. And the reports we were passing to him, the PowerPoint presentations we were doing weren't really resonating, and we weren't getting the approval we needed. And I heard that there was this team hidden somewhere in the bowels of the company that if you could find them, they'd make you these awesome interactive reports. And so it sounded like a thing to seek out, and I found them, and they made our really ugly presentations into these gorgeous vizzes, and we got approval right away. And that really hit home with me. So when I saw a position open up at Tableau, I jumped on it. I've been here not quite a year. I'm celebrating 1 year next week, and this is my first TC.
Wow, a lot of firsts here.
Yeah, I feel like if they let the new guy talk on a project, it's probably a pretty decent project. So hopefully you guys will agree when we're done here. I think my favorite thing about working on this project was, full disclosure, I have a humanities degree. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not a mathematician. Surprisingly similar with most SEOs I've found, that we're not all mathematicians. And so working with an actual analyst that has the ability to bring some rigor to my math and help me better define the data that I'm working with and the measures that I'm creating is really exciting stuff. You know what you want to see, and you know what you want to know, and having someone that can kind of fill those knowledge gaps is especially helpful. And I think pairing with Hannah on this helped us deliver a product that was really superior to everything I've worked with. So before we get too into the dashboards, sorry guys, going the wrong direction.
Common problem. I wonder if it's happening to other speakers. I don't know. Might just be us.
So if you're here, you're probably a marketer. We work closely with the marketing team. So you probably use at least a handful of tools. I've got my suite of tools. You've probably got yours. It could be your website database. It could be Google Analytics, Twitter, whatever your department happens to use. I imagine most of those look familiar. You're probably using at least half of these, maybe a dozen more. And I got curious, in putting this project together, how big is this problem? How many of us are using just enormous suites of tools? And fortunately, other people did the research for me. Thanks to HubSpot, I think most of us here know HubSpot. They did a survey that said 51.5% of marketers are using 5 to 10 tools. There's 10% of marketers that are using between 15 and 30 tools. I'm guilty. I've got somewhere in the range of 20 to 25. Some of that's my web team's fault. I just kind of ride on their data, but depending on your setup, it could be pretty varied. But they did say that 61% of marketers wanted better integration of their tools and improved processes for sharing data between the tools. How many of you have to build weekly reports and have data that you're pulling in from each one of these tools and trying to cram into a spreadsheet or some sort of viz, and it's a weekly drag and it doesn't really tell the full story. The data's side by side, but the story's not there. That's what we're trying to solve for. And Teradata did another great study. They looked at it from the other side and said that 80% of marketers believe that these silos exist and they're not letting them see the full story between their campaigns and their customers. So it's more than just your reporting problem, it's a marketing problem. We're not getting the full story and we can't understand our websites as ecosystems. Everything we do supports the website, and that's the data you want to get to. They did that study in 2013. The 2015 study was a 65% increase. So it's not just a problem, it's a trending problem. It's getting worse. So to recap, we got three similar problems we're going to address. Data exists in separate tools, and it makes collaboration and cohesive reporting quite a challenge. The reporting's siloed by channel, so you're not getting the full story. And the reports are often one size fits all, and I haven't addressed this yet, but for most of us, our reports don't go to just our direct manager. Parts of that report or their whole report goes up. And the challenge with that is everyone's got a different view. Your CMO doesn't want to know the nitty-gritty details of your data. They just want to know, is it doing good or bad? And it's up to you to know what that means and what metrics to pass up to them. So that was a major concern in building the dashboards we built, was at each level of reporting, are people that we're reporting to able to get the data they need out of their reports? So we've talked about the problem. Now let's talk about the solution. We wanted to build a tool that met all of these goals. But we also wanted to compare it to out of the box. Because to be honest, I'm a little bit lazy, and if I can get a tool and just pay you cash that'll do everything I want, you've got my money. Unfortunately, we went through a lot of tools. We sat through a lot of presentations, a lot of sales pitches. Nobody could give us everything we wanted. Not their fault, but we decided we'd build it. And we spent roughly, what would you say, 5 months?
Yeah.
About 5 months, and we're going to show you where we're at today. And just as a heads up, we're nowhere near finished. We've got a lot of plans, and we'll talk about those at the end. So we started with a prototype. I'm sure a lot of you recognize that. Basic GA, just at the very least, how many users, how many sessions per week, week over week? Are we going up? Are we going down? Can we see the cycles? That's what we came up with. It's visually a little varied, but you're going to see the same data is there. It's trending week over week, up or down, and we've got sessions by page, really standard data. This was just a proof point. This was, can we do it? Do we have the ability? Are we smart enough to recreate GA in Tableau? The good news was we were. It would have been really sad if we hadn't, but we also wouldn't have spent 5 months trying to build something that we couldn't build. So these are our beta products. Now they're getting a little flashier. We're starting to show off. There's a lot of data there, and it's really more complex, and we're drilling down into levels. This kind of sealed it for us. We got feedback on the initial designs. For everyone from our CMO to our direct manager chimed in. We even got people from the content team, that are separate from us, because what they do affects what we do. We got a lot of great feedback, people asking questions, well, where's this? What about that? So we started just building it all in. And over that process, we got much better defined dashboards. But why Tableau? The connectivity is first and foremost. We wanted a lot of different data. As we said before, it lives in a ton of different places. So being able to connect to that and pull it in was #1 priority. Customizable, we didn't build one viz and then change tiny things. There were a couple instances where we scrapped a viz and started over and built something brand new. Data management, this is critical. A report is only as good as the person reading it. And if you're not there to present, your data is subject to their interpretation. So we wanted to keep that in mind and be able to manage our data sources well. We didn't want people coming in and adding new filters and customizing things that we had set up for a very particular purpose and then altering the abilities of our dashboard. Now, Hannah's going to talk to you a little bit about how we built it.
So as Josh had already mentioned, we had sat through several product demos, hoped that we could buy it because, why build it if you can buy it? Just kidding, kind of. But anyways, so this was kind of the process that we went through in order to create the product that we're going to be showing you in a few minutes. First, you have to identify a problem. Then you have to scope the remedy. After that, you have to do work, because if you don't do work, then you're not going to be able to deploy a solution. And then you have to refine and repeat. It's very iterative. And then we'll talk about evangelizing your work in a little bit. So to go a little bit more detail, identify the problem. We have disparate data, right? We just talked about that. But not only is it disparate, it's also not very cost effective. So a lot of the out-of-box tools that we were emulating wouldn't scan or scale with us internationally. We're an international company. We localize in 8 different languages. And if we wanted to track keywords across different platforms and different translations of those keywords, then we would get charged every single time. Google.com, Google.it, Google.fr, that's a different charge for each one of those. And so we knew that we wanted to be able to track all of our English words and their translations on the platforms that are most relevant to the regions of the world that they were in. So cost was a huge issue. And then also siloed collaboration. If you work in marketing, which I assume you do because you're in here, then you know that you have your set of tools. But it doesn't mean that anybody on the content team uses that same set of tools, or the social, or the digital team. And so you might be collaborating with others within your group, but it doesn't really span broader than that a lot of times. So we were pretty far down the pipe already with scoping remedy, just because we were really familiar with the problem. And we had been working, or Josh had been working in these tools for quite a while and was able to articulate the need pretty well. So I'm just going to go over a few of the top level things in this part that were really important for this project specifically. First is knowing your audience, because if you don't know your audience, then you don't know what's going to be important to them. And then you aren't going to know what data they need. So it's really important to be very aware of who you're targeting, what their questions are, and then where the data is that can help you answer those questions for them. So in our instance, we knew that our executive team had some questions. Generally is things along the lines of, how is the site doing? Are we better or worse this year than we were last year? We had to define doing. And then we had individual contributors like Josh and writers on the content team who had specific KPIs that they needed to hit or they needed to show movement towards, and we wanted to build a tool that could help them do that. And then we had our middle managers, people managers. They care about not only what their individual contributor wants, but they also care about what the executives in their organization care about, because they also need to show movement. They need to be able to work in the in-between. Next is, where's your data? Our data is all over the place. This probably isn't even the complete list. Working at Tableau, one of the blessings and curses is that data is literally everywhere. We have all different kinds of databases, all different kinds of platforms, and we always are trying to get it out, because then we can get it into Tableau. So when you're scoping your project, it's really important to understand what you have and whether or not there are things on your list that you don't have yet. So for example, we didn't have all the things. Majestic backlink tools, not something that we had on board right away. Then if you don't have access to the data, then you might as well not even have it on board. Is it in a database, or what's the current connection? So when we first started out, a lot of our things were in CSVs or in MySQL. Google Analytics, fortunately, was in BigQuery. And then our end state is going to be everything in BigQuery. Now, why this is important is because we were able to start building for our future end state. A lot of these things, we built prototypes off of the CSVs and had batches running, so it was kind of live, but ultimately we're going to be putting it all in BigQuery because of the performance benefits. And then you'll see that there's a few things that we don't actually have plans for. New Relic, we want to get in there. However, it's not something that we actually have access to right now, so we're not sure if we'll be able to get the data out. Is that it for scoping? No. There's a lot of other components to scoping, but these are the two most important for us in this project. And then we had to do work. And the thing that I really want to emphasize here is that it's not just us. It's not just Josh and I. There's a ton of people involved in this project. And about 80% of our work with other people in our organization actually happened in hallway flybys, in just casual conversations. So for example, when we started getting into the data, we noticed that there were some abnormalities. Bounce rate was over 100%. Bounce rate over 100%. You know you have a problem when your bounce rate is over 100. So we reached out to our internal Google manager, and he said, I don't know, that looks strange. Let me reach out to our Google agency. So we reached out to the Google agency, and they took a deeper look and discovered that there was a tag double firing, which was double counting sessions, and that caused the bounce rate over 100%. Now, there's a few wins in this. One, we got the problem solved. We also identified the problem, and then we were able to set up processes to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. And all of those things occurred because we were in the product and working with the data and asking questions and fostering cross-departmental or cross-team conversations. And then we had to work with our database developer. And this is because we no longer had something to validate our new work from. We were referencing Google Analytics as our source of truth in this instance because we didn't have any other means for validating it. And so at the end of the day, we lost that because our data in Google Analytics was contaminated. But we were able to collaborate with our database developer in order to validate our reasoning, at least. And then all these other people come into play a lot. Like I said, we're a global company. Localization is really important. They have to work with the content team to determine what white papers and other articles are going to get localized and in what time period. And we're using our analytics to do that. So another example with getting your data into shape or identifying your data, making it into something that can be actionable is an example of trying to recreate a very basic calculation from Google Analytics, which is % of new users. This is what I was doing. I thought it should be new users over total users. However, when digging deeper into it, I discovered that this is what Google Analytics was doing. Now, the beauty of doing this work in Tableau and taking the data out of Google Analytics is that you can determine how you want your calculations done. You can document that and just go forward and say, this is what we've established, and this is our reasoning, and that's been one of the beautiful things for us. We could use the top one, new users over total users, but we went with the Google Analytics one, but we could change it. Those are different numbers, and they might mean different things to different people.
So one of the things we found when we first plugged into our data was it was a mess. This was an actual viz. This happened. And part of that was, Tableau has been around a while. The site's not brand new. And with any website that's been around a while, you end up with legacy pages and landing pages people forgot about and things that were supposed to be taken down that never were. It happens to the best of us. But getting in there and seeing it, it really can be eye-opening. This case in particular, we looked at it and said, wow, there's a lot of dead leaves on the tree. It's time to go through. Sounds like a great time for a site audit. Let's tear the whole thing down and start over. No, just kidding.
Wish that was the way it was.
But don't panic. It's going to be ugly at first, but part of the fun of building this tool was learning all about the website. We came out of this with so much deeper of an understanding about what was on our website and why things were working the way they were and how they could work better. It's just part of the process. So if anything, learn to love the process. So more to discovering the data in our set. This is a viz of our content categories broken out by language groups. And as you can see, there's a lot going on there. English, obviously, a big big man on campus. That's because we don't localize every single piece of content. So everybody else in the world has fewer available pages in their language, but we can easily see that there's a lot going on here, and particularly on the impressions line, we're looking at GA data and Google Search Console data side by side. That's all that's in here. And when you look at impressions, you see China, this first tab, their impressions are super low. All right, that looks wrong. That can't be right, right? Well, we looked into it, and just part of not working in the Chinese marketing team closely enough, Baidu is the main search engine in China. Should have known. It's not that there's no data or that the data is broken. It's we're looking at the wrong data. So now we've got tickets in to build a database to house our Baidu data. Again, you find gaps, you find new things, and you keep building. It's like you start out with a small 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, and by the time you're done, you've got a mansion.
So then we deployed our solution, our first prototype, something you saw a little bit earlier. This was it. It does look a lot different than the basic Google Analytics dashboard, but it's basically telling you the same thing. It has the same aggregations. You can filter by period over time. And this was great. People liked it. But with all things, you still got to refine and repeat. And one of the things that I identified at first was the fact that it was really slow. Tableau, I don't know if you guys have worked with millions of lines of data before, but anything over approximately 17 million lines becomes a problem in a TDE. And when you're working with site data, that's not going to work out very well. So it would take me hours to extract a dashboard just so that my end user could go and then try to hit a filter and wait for 5 minutes for it to load and then forget what they were doing and then never see the result. So I identified the problem that my dashboard wasn't performant. And not only that, I was doing all of the other things that are not recommended best practices, cross-database joins, LODs, and blends, all on this dashboard just to prove the fact that I could get it to work. This is an example of me going delirious. This is, yes, at 8 o'clock on a Friday, emailing Alan, hypa, that guy. So letting him know that I cannot wait for Hyper because I had to wait 5 hours for this to extract. 55 million lines, 5 hours on a Friday. Is that really what we want to be doing? No, there was no magical, sparkle that appeared and made it happen in 10 minutes, so I waited. But this is a great example of the fact that we're all humans, right? We're all mortals. We can't, we're analysts at Tableau, but we can't speed up the TDE. So we're waiting. And while we're waiting, we have to figure out what we can do so that our business users can get value now. So we went back to the drawing board, started with hit-level data. Everything in there was a click by click, each user's track on the site, but we weren't utilizing that. So we decided to strip that out, aggregate to the day. And in this process, we actually had to work a lot with our database developer as well. Best guy in the world, Blake Levy. He got one of the cross-database joins into BigQuery. It was formerly in MySQL, so that we could understand our pages by content category. That was massive, and that really helped improve performance as well. So then we deployed the solution, got feedback, put it out in the wild, said, go nuts, let us know what else you want, which leads us to refine and repeat. And in that process, like Josh said, started with a 2-bedroom, and now we're maybe to like a mid-sized family 2-story, because we started wanting to build an organic solution. But when people started seeing what we were doing, they're like, hey, can I get my KPI-related data in there? We have content writers that have very specific measures that they're trying to track against. And so that's where the next phase of refine and repeat happened. And this is a process that's going on over and over and over again, and I actually don't see an end in sight. And so one of the things that's most important in this entire process is evangelizing your work. There is no I in team, but there is an evangelize. And when you do it well, you can create collaboration. And so if we didn't, kind of socialize and elevate why the work we were doing was important and how it was going to provide business impact, then we wouldn't have gone anywhere. And one of the things that was really great, about this whole thing and not having it be a formalized project is that there wasn't pressure put on our counterparts on other teams and our other subject matter experts. It was more of a collaboration, friend to friend. Hey, can you get this thing into a database? Oh, you want to buy a backlink tool? Okay, what does that data look like? Can we operationalize getting that into BigQuery? Other benefits of iteration, I guess I kind of got ahead of myself, but you can bite off what you can chew. So we started, which was trying to build an organic solution, and we're looking towards creating a paid and social solution so that we can understand how everything is influencing each other. It simplified collaboration with others. Hallway flybys are much more effective sometimes than long meetings because you have deadlines. And your tool evolves as you evolve. I didn't think that this was going to turn into such a huge thing. I don't think you did, but it's great. One of the things that I've had to learn through this entire process, though, is as an analyst, I like when there's a deadline and an end in sight. If I have a project and I've scoped it correctly and I can check all the boxes and ship that, then that feels great. But this one just kind of, new things get added all the time, and I'm like, can my work just be done? But I'm learning to appreciate it because it's actually really great and doing big things for a company. Yeah, if you didn't visit, it didn't happen. So this is where we get into the vizzes because, like I said at the top, it would just be wrong if we didn't show you some of our vizzes. That's not good. I guess we get to take a break. I don't know. Does anybody have a quick question that they want to ask at this point before we get into the vizzes? It is? Yeah. Yeah?
I have a question about your data loading. So hi, I'm Lisa. I'm not in marketing.
Okay.
And I do work with Google Analytics data. I saw that you talked about going from hit level to what I assume is session level data in Google Analytics. I'm wondering if you're serving this dashboard to users who are updating it and whether you've had performance issues. Because the thing we run into is that even at the session level, there's so much data if we want to update it on a day or a week or
Yeah, so the question was, are your users having performance issues because of updating time, basically? Because hit level is a lot of data. And even when you aggregate up to a day or week by session or whatever, it can still be a lot and not be a favorable experience. Actually, I haven't had that much of a problem. And it might be because most of it is by week. So if you aggregate by day, then that's going to be a ton more data. And so right now, I haven't really had much of an issue. But I would assume that if I wanted to do hit and then clickstream and things like that, we would probably have performance issues. But hyper, coming soon.
To follow up on your question, one of the other things we were doing to help with performance issues was break things down into smallest categories that we could come up with. A lot of our visits show it by content category type, which is our Drupal template types. So white papers, events, those sorts of things. And filtering down to those can help. So if you need a solution in the meantime while we're waiting for hyper, then it works. You might have to come back around and build a new dashboard.
So you've seen this flashed a few times, and this is just showing us all of our sessions. The left side of your pane, you'll see that that's a recreation of Google Analytics. And then we also added search activity, because our users said, OK, this is great, but can you tell me more about what's happening in search? This doesn't feel like it's the full view. So we said, sure. So our database developer, the gem that he is, got Google Search Console put into BigQuery, so that's what you're seeing there. And then we also added a pane on the side to help our users better answer their own questions. This is a new resource and a new dashboard. Not everybody's familiar with what an impression in organic search means. People are really familiar with those terms for paid. But we thought that we could elevate their experience by providing the answers immediately. And then the other thing that we did is we created a filter to show search traffic by whether it was branded or not. Tableau has a lot of fun misspellings. Tableau, you name it, it's in there. So we wanted to understand what our presence on the web was when it wasn't branded. Which takes us to our next dashboard. Oops.
So this is looking at branded versus unbranded traffic by search engine. This is just the standard report in GA. We're not connected to all of these search engines yet. I keep adding new search engines to Hannah's to-do list. What you see is what you already know. Google's encrypting the vast majority of that. But you notice Bing is encrypting significantly less, and sites like so.com, Naver, Sogu, they're not encrypting any. I think for most SEOs, the general theory is that your keyword data scales based on what you can see versus what you can't see. So, 10% of our traffic that we can see is coming from keyword X, then that scales up by however much data we don't have. So one thing you could possibly do is start building out content keyword categories, breaking them into things you're tracking instead of trying to track it all, and then building a matrix that pulls it in from all the search engines and puts it all in one viz, and that's a future project. But this was eye-opening to us. This is an area of opportunity we hadn't thought about until we actually saw the viz and said, I just kind of assumed if Google was encrypting and Bing was encrypting, everybody was encrypting, and that's not the case. So there's a little bit of opportunity out there. Again, the more you play with the data, the more you discover.
And then the next one is looking at our data by content categories. And Josh has mentioned this a little bit. We are collecting content categories based off of a template in Drupal. And so we're able to look at pages on an aggregate that makes a little bit more sense, because typically people just look at pages either at a page level or aggregated to the entire site. But there's a lot of value at looking at content by categories, because each category is going to perform differently. So in this example, you can see that the blog is looking pretty good. Those are pretty big bars, so it must be doing good things, right? Well, when thinking about it a little bit more, that might not be the whole story, which we'll get to after content by language group.
Sure. And I over-talked myself a little bit on the previous slide discussing the Baidu data. But you can see here, this is the same dashboard. We've got customer stories, white papers. The filters you can pull down. I believe we've got content category, timeline, language support. There's a lot of different ways you can slice this. English, again, has all of the data there. But you could feasibly filter out English and see how everyone else scales to each other, which is a more reasonable comparison. We tend to do translations and localizations in RAFs, so eight standard languages plus any other targets we want to hit. So there's at least 8 that should be compared to each other. Just things to know about your company's internal processes and what that looks like and what that data should look like. And I think that brings us to the next level down.
And then, so also in looking at this is our unsupported languages, our limited support languages. So as a global organization, we're trying to decide what language we should localize in next. And when you understand how you are representing yourself on the web, you can put out test content to see how it performs over time to determine what's going to happen next. I don't know what the next language is going to be, but I would bet that it could be something between, Italian, Russian, or Portuguese. But that's not official or anything. So then our next dashboard, the content health, which answers a little bit more of the question, is the blog performing the best over time? And if you're just one of the complications with website data also is that you're trying to look at multiple metrics and then metrics, how they influence each other. So is there one metric that you can track over time to simplify the process? This is kind of a little bit more of a high-level dashboard that our CMO can look at and understand, oh, great, blog is doing really well or not, or our customer stories section is performing really well or not. In this example, the scatter plot at the top is an aggregated point value for all the pages within the content category over this period of time. The scatter plot actually represents a week, and each of the bars is a week in time as well, so you can see what the trend was. And then lower down, you'll see a bunch of line charts with bubbles, and those bubbles are based off of a standard deviation of where the content category falls amongst other content categories. So you'll see that over time, ebbs and flows a little bit. But the other thing that's really interesting about this dashboard is the keywords. So this is customer stories. Customer stories are a collection of pages for customers explaining how they've done cool things in Tableau. So you heard one in our keynote today, which makes sense that partners is the top trending keyword category group in this content category. And this shows us that we're performing well over time. If partners was not the top, then I'd be a little bit concerned because clearly we don't have correct SEO strategy in regards to those pages.
I also want to point out, and we've got the same data point on this dashboard as well, but what we're seeing right here, this score that Hannah was telling you is based off the standard deviation. As an SEO, this is super helpful to me because it's really hard to walk into meetings with people who aren't SEO savvy and explain how a page is doing when you're looking at impressions, click-through rate, number of sessions, bounce rate. That's a lot of varied metrics, and I don't know any page that has them perfectly adjusted across the board so that you just look at it and you're like, yeah, that page is doing great. That almost never happens. So having a single score makes this a perfect report for passing up to people who aren't subject matter expertise. And for the page health, this is my favorite. Hannah came up with this idea, and I thought it was brilliant. Looking at page health, we can see there's a density of pages that aren't meeting that quality score. So we can immediately see what's underperforming, what's not meeting our standard. And again, this is based off this score here. So there's a to-do list. There's my weekly to-do list. Let's go fix some pages. Let's raise the bottom so that we get fewer red pages. But the nice thing about the score is that there's never going to be no red pages. There's always going to be something that could perform better. You'll always see what's performing at the very top. You'll always see what could be performing better, and then you'll have your stuff in the middle. This is absolutely my favorite thing we've done so far. And again, you can get to see by keyword group distribution how things are doing. Are we in the ballpark? Are we hitting the right keywords for this set of content, for this page? It really gives us a lot more insight, a lot more effective insight, I think, than we had before.
And you can also filter this by page category as well. So recently we've been going through some auditing and cleaning things out. And this is kind of a little bit of an issue. We had similar percentages. This isn't exact data, but when the blog, for example, has 40% of pages in the red, then that means you need to have a cleanup. And then we're also going to be building in some other means for tracking keywords. We're actually going to associate a specific keyword to each page, and then we can actually track that over time. So now to adoption and impact.
There we go. So if a subject matter expert and an analyst build a viz, does anybody care that it exists? Obviously, just working with people, trying to get the things we needed to build these, got the word out pretty fast. I would say probably 2/3 of the marketing department knew what we were up to by the time we had something to show, which was fantastic.
Be careful what your code name is, too, because if you
it'll
don't want
stick.
it to be the permanent name, then it will be shortly.
And you need that awareness, you need that adoption. You need people to start using your dashboard, and you want to start putting that seed in people's mind that this is going to be the record of truth. This is the thing you want to look at. This is where the real data lives. Stop looking at all those separate reports. Stop sharing spreadsheets through email. We've all been guilty of that at some point. Let's be clean about our data. Let's be focused, and let's use a single source. And that's really what we're getting at today is we've unified that data. All that data across all those different tools now lives in one place. We save $50,000 a year, and we haven't even been doing it the whole year. This is, I feel especially great about that. And that's money we save from not using tools that are your typical out-of-the-box solutions. Granted, we're a fairly large organization. We're very tech-savvy, very data-savvy. A lot of the tools that we're using, we already had on board. And that may not be the case if you're a small agency or even a mid-sized agency. Some of the stuff we're using is pretty heavy lifting. Big queries, a little hard to pull off if you don't have someone who can write SQL. Things you got to know. But if you still want to get it done, you can always hire a contractor. And cross-team collaboration, I think, has definitely improved since we've been using this. People are talking to each other about things that we weren't previously talking about. I've got a closer relationship with the content team, which as an SEO is crucial to me. If I'm not on the content team, then my ability to do my job is mitigated. So having them know what I'm trying to achieve and having them be a part of that process and weigh in and allowing me to provide metrics for them to do their reporting and help prove that they're doing good work, that's been really important as well.
So for what we wish we'd known, there's only a few things. We limited it to 3 because, 2020, you learn a lot. But anyways, we wish that we would have really understood the scope of this project, because then we could have correctly gotten work prioritized or given the best allotted amount of time to it, just even individually, not asking for work from other contributors and other resources. This was, I can't underestimate the amount of work that it took to get this done, and it's been great. Part of the iterative process that I discussed earlier, a benefit is that for us, we didn't have it prioritized, but it's plus and a minus. And then we also didn't have a great understanding of the data complexity. Part of that is because of Google Analytics, and it's kind of hard to understand what Google Analytics is doing. One of the primary resources that we used was Lunametrics. They put a lot of good documentation out there about how to use Tableau as well as GA. And then knowing the difference between scope creep and evolution of the tool. So that's something we already kind of went into. But really, this has been a huge opportunity for us to not only evolve the way that we work and the way that we work with other people, but also how other people in our organization are doing their work. So what do you say? Are you ready to go build something? So like I said, this project we couldn't have done without several other people on board. We had, at minimum, conversations with the Google Analytics guy, Jason Tabert, if he's here, and then Blake Levy, who's our database developer, and then the content team and people from localization, so that we could actually build a product that was useful for them, and that's what helped us get ground support. And we know that we couldn't have done this without Tableau, because Josh has been in the business for a while. He knows what the tool offerings are. We had one on board, and we decided that it really wasn't working well for us. And so we hope that this has helped inspire you, if you don't have this problem, then to solve other related problems, and to hope that you can be more successful with Tableau. You don't have to do it alone. There's other people that can help you there.
And we're going to help you too. So we don't want this to be the end. If you're interested and you want to build this, but you don't know where to start, we've got your back. We're going to be doing a blog post as we continue to progress through our process, and we're going to publish things, lists of resources that have helped us. We're going to tell you exactly where to go, because we spend a lot of time just fishing for data, trying to figure things out on our own. And while it was a lot of fun, I wouldn't want to do it twice. So
No.
we're gonna put the link out on social media. We'll both be sharing it on LinkedIn. We're going to get Tableau to share it on theirs as well. And follow it, bookmark it. We're going to try to update the same page so you don't have to check back every time or follow the feed. But if you're interested, check the blog post. And I think we got a little time left if we've got any questions.
And
Yes, sir.
I think we have a few mics set up. It was Dark Plane. Dark Plane? Yeah, see, it doesn't make sense, Then I get that question all the time. What does that mean? Yeah.
Have you done or do you plan to do anything with heat maps?
We're currently using Crazy Egg. So we've got heat map data. We haven't really decided how we want to use that. I don't think we actually even specifically called that out. If you notice, the viz is drilled down from site aggregate to page. So we're open to going deeper. We haven't decided how we want to implement that data or if it's even worth recreating it. Personally, I think Crazy Egg's got a great product. It works really well. It's super easy to implement. Is it worth our time pulling that into a database to pull it into Tableau? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. Connecting with Adobe for Audience Manager? Well, we're not an Adobe shop, so I don't particularly have good experience in that. We're a pretty heavy Google shop. And so, connecting through Tableau. So one of the problems, I can only speak from experience with Google Analytics, is that the Google Analytics connector is slow, and it limits you to the number of fields you can pull in at a time. And so you're going to be limited by GA. If you just get all your data into BigQuery or another database, then you're going to be able to be much more successful, and it's going to be more nimble. Yeah?
Yeah, I'm actually from IT, and I was wondering how you got your GA people and your business people to agree and collaborate, because my business people came to me asking for a dashboard in Tableau and through the web analytics, but my GA people would say, why connect the rate for A to wheel? Reporting should be available in GA, so I'm kind of caught in between.
Yeah. So the question was, so that everybody can hear it, how can you get everybody on board? She works in IT. Google Analytics people are saying, why can't you just use Google Analytics? And the business is saying, we need customized reports. And so for us, one of the things that really helped the adoption with Tableau alone is that if it doesn't exist on our internal server, then it basically doesn't exist at all. You know, we're not going to be getting our executives to log into Google Analytics to understand, is the site doing better or worse over time? So that was one of the main drivers for us. But in regards to advice for your business, I would actually really encourage see, I don't trust Google Analytics that much. You know, there's a lot of things going on in our instance that was not showing us the true picture of our website. And so I would encourage the business users to collaborate as much as they can and build the relationships with their Google Analytics managers in order to ensure that the Google Analytics managers know what they want and know what they need, and then work together to understand whether it's possible or not in GA. I would bet that it's not.
We also cheated. Our GA guy sits on the other side of the desk from me.
Yeah.
So I just got to bug him enough that he had to comply.
Yeah.
That's not cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We did.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. So the question was, did the taxonomies already exist, or were those filters we created? So we actually pulled in our Drupal database and used the content template types as the content types. So all that was pre-existing.
We do.
We do, and you can still see it.
So
Hannah can speak to
yeah,
that.
what we're doing in the back end is I'm creating a bunch of custom views in BigQuery myself. So the Drupal data will get us part of the way there, right? But we have several similar categories. So we have solutions, which is our solution pages, but then we have story topic pages, which is what the old solution pages used to be. And those are what their end-level content categories are. So I created a parent content category, which is what you actually saw there. So fortunately, it's kind of up to us to determine that because we're the primary drivers, you know? So I would assume that maybe at another time when we have other business departments really bought in, then we would probably open that up to a little bit more of a collaboration. It doesn't matter to me as long as it makes sense to the business.
Yes.
Some of the dashboards that you showed, I'm curious, how many different data sources are behind some of those dashboards? Like, it was,
Yeah.
what I'm really trying to understand is, like, who was your primary driver for doing this? Was it that you had so much disparate data, and using Tableau to connect all these disparate data sources was really the only way to bring it all together?
Yeah.
I think it was kind of two-sided. Having disparate data was the initial problem. And that was kind of the easy sell to everybody else was, why is this all in different places? We are Tableau, why aren't we putting it in one place? But the other side of that was, those vises aren't actually as complex as they look. I mean, I think most of those are 2, possibly 3 data sources. But my goal is, and I told you I was excited to work for Tableau. I just want to condense all of this data down to the smallest number of data points I can get. I want page scores, I want good or bad scores, and that sounds really reductive, but I've got the ability to drill down. I can always go deeper, but for my CMO, for my VP, I want them to have a dashboard that says, is this good or not, yes or no? I don't want you to spend more than 5 minutes on it.
Yeah, and in regards to the data source question, fortunately at Tableau, we basically let anybody have access to anything. So me as an analyst, I can go in and create views in BigQuery. And if I wasn't doing that, then I would probably be using more because it would be all pieced together in different places. And for the page health and the content health dashboards, I actually did all of that in Alteryx. So I brought in Google Analytics, Drupal, because it wasn't in BigQuery at first. It recently has, and I'm going to be moving that over. And then a few other tools. I was doing a bunch of data blending and calculations and the standard deviation stuff in Alteryx itself, so then just pushing out one thing to be ingested in Tableau. But this will grow, so we have dreams, because you got to have dreams, y'all. We want to bring in all these other things, so it will expand. So it depends on what you mean by data source. So all of these things will be in BigQuery. So we'll be unioning Google Search Console with Baidu and all the other international search engines. Yes?
I got here a little bit late, so I apologize if this was covered. The mother of all metrics.
Yeah.
Did you talk about the components of that?
Didn't talk about it in depth. The mother of all scores, another great name.
Yeah.
Basically what it was is I assigned a point score based off of standard deviation by the content category or by the content group. And so for example, sending all the pages through this model that only looked at pages within blog and then scored the pages within those so you can see what was healthy specifically to blog.
And then for something like bounce rate, you put a negative coefficient on that?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. No. Yeah, there's also limitations with that too. And I am an analyst who loves to just connect directly to the data and that's just kind of too much in between. I believe that BigQuery also has limitations on the number of columns you can bring back at a time. I'm not really sure because I generally always just connect directly to the source. Yes. So we have Google Analytics Premium, and so do you as well? Yeah. So that's going to be a limitation with the connector in Tableau, and that's why we're going to BigQuery. Yes.
So I know for Tableau, you guys are trying to sell obviously Tableau some way. So with Google Analytics, did you try to track some kind of like full funnel attribution modeling? Like to know like where
That's coming.
Yeah.
That is.
The question was full funnel. Are we doing any sort of analysis with that?
And I think this part of the problem with creating that, with the reason we've put this off till later, is because that requires hit level data. And we've built that data source, and it's huge. It's, what was 55 million?
Yeah, for 8 months.
Yeah, 55 million for 8 months.
With organic only, I think.
Pre-filtered. So it's really heavy lifting, and we wanted to get a good proof of concept out and get everybody's buy-in, as opposed to spending 3 to 6 months trying to figure out how to make that work. I do think Tableau is going to be great for that, and I think we can probably come up with some interesting ways to show that. I've always hated the Google Analytics visualization of that. It's really hard to follow. And your solution is, I think, next to put it into a spreadsheet and go from that. It's a bad experience.
And the other reason why we haven't done that yet is because we were working with our Google Analytics Manager database or a site developer to recreate some of the tags and goals, and so that we can better track what people are doing. That just shipped, so it'll be coming soon.
This gentleman over here.
Speaking to adoption, after you initially released it and it was running too slow and you had to iterate it again, how do you convince people to come back to it and say, hey, it's fixed this time?
Yeah. If you couldn't hear that, that was how do you get people to come back after they'd had a bad experience based on performance? You tell them that that dashboard will answer their question. Hey, I want to know how X, Y, or Z was doing. Oh, great, here's the link. And so it's kind of just a forced. You can't really give in and answer the question for them because they need to learn how to fish. Yeah.
But
tough love.
Exactly. And one of the things we did was we made sure that everyone we worked with, because this wasn't the only thing we were doing. We had all these regular projects going on. This was essentially side work. And we were in all these meetings, and people would say, well, do we know if X, Y, Z? And I was always first with, oh, we've got a dashboard for that. And they'd check it out, and you might get negative feedback, like, oh, it took forever to load, or I couldn't get it to load on my PC. Cool. What problems were you having? What didn't work for you? Great. Well, we're still developing this, so we'll keep working on it. You keep letting us know if it's getting better or not. Make them part of the process. In my experience, you make people feel included. They're willing to do more work with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How are you managing the cost associated with Google BigQuery? Is it paper query?
Yeah, it's paper query.
So are you just like writing one BigQuery, pulling it back and extracting it, or and then making it available to users?
No, well, I'm actually extracting it on a daily basis. I could do it on a weekly basis, but because most of our aggregations start to the week. But fortunately, we're not too worried about that. The Google Analytics billing is managed by somebody else, and I haven't been told no yet, so. Yes?
So you mentioned some of the conflicts with the Google Analytics out of the box, like bounce rate and stuff like that. You run into that too. Do you have users within Tableau using the Google Analytics actual
Yes.
platform, and have you had to work through that tension?
Yes. Yeah. This is actually kind of interesting, especially being international company and offices all over the globe. It's really important to try to create one source of truth. And so if you have users who have Google Analytics access who aren't in the same office and even if they are in the same office, it's kind of hard to stay on the same page all the time. And so I know that we had gone through a phase where we had limited Google Analytics access, but it's kind of broadened again. But over time, that'll probably be reduced to people who actually are really familiar with the platform.
Yes, sir.
Oh, WhatsApp? Yeah. What do we want to do with it? So we want to bring in all the social platforms. So Facebook, LinkedIn, and so we can and Twitter, so we can better understand our presence. And WhatsApp is actually really big internationally, and our international marketing team is using that a lot. I actually don't know what we're going to do yet, but it's on the list.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Probably. That's also on the list. It's great having your own data. It really helps if you've got somebody else's. Yeah, we've got plans to do that. Looking at things like TF-IDF, that's a couple of SEO tools have recently added that to their list. People have been asking for it for a long time. Super excited to build a tool and be able to tack that on faster than these enterprise companies building their own tools. That's fun and exciting. But yeah, sort of competitor data is super important.
Yeah. So the question was there a reason for choosing BigQuery? By the time Josh and I got involved in this project, so full disclosure, I started in marketing in December of last year, and Josh, a year. So that ship had already sailed. I love BigQuery, but I wasn't part of the decision making there. Since all of our site data was in BigQuery already, it just made sense to put everything else there. Any other questions? Oh, yes?
It was kind of the top of the list in the last slide, but has your digital ad spending team, I'm not sure how much you guys actually spend, but have they been kind of hounding you to get their information?
I've got one gentleman who is really on me to sync up with him and merge their data. It's a lot. It's a lot. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to work with their data separate, figure out how to condense it down, and then bring the condensed version in to our boards, and based solely on what's relevant to SEO. These are all organic dashboards. Hopefully we'll end up leaving them with some great performant dashboards that they can use, and that shared score will be a thing that we all use together. That's kind of the plan, is syncing everyone to the same metrics and figuring out how they interplay, because again, the siloed data, siloed teams, it's not productive. So that's definitely where we're headed.
Anyways, one last question? Yeah.
we
We
still have that
actually didn't include that slide. You noticed? We didn't include a slide because there isn't really anything specifically related to marketing, at least within Tableau. But there are other dashboarding sessions that could be pretty cool. Tableau, the project management team for dashboarding is doing some really cool stuff down in Tableau Labs. But in regards to more analytics, New Relic was happening at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, to that point, if you guys like this session, please fill out the survey. Let us know. If you've noticed, Tableau is not doing a ton of marketing sessions. If you like it, we'll do more. We're happy to do more. We want to do this more often. So just let us know if you like it, and thanks for coming out today. We really appreciate having you guys here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.